Hey friend, listen. I know the world is scary right now. Corruption, war, inflation, demographics, degeneracy, disease, unrest, hatred, and despair. We didn't come here to tell you how it is, but that it's going to get way better.
Got a good thing coming, and it's all I need. Everything I want, so wait and see.
Better by Bitcoin.
Good.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We got Skylar and Jordan in the house tonight. Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys?
So, Skylar, we wanted to bring you on because you are a designer focusing on the Bitcoin space. You now have a company called Finite Supply, where you are focusing on Bitcoin companies. You're leading one of the leaders in terms of how do we think about what Bitcoin companies should look like, how they should feel, how they interact with the community and the larger, outside world, outside of the Bitcoin space. So I wanted to get your update on how you've been. I saw you, 6 months ago or so. And I also wanted to get your take on how Bitcoin and design are connected and what that looks like. So yeah, Skylar, give us
Awesome,
your 30 seconds.
Thanks for having me on. The last year, so basically I started Finite Supply a year ago. May 22nd, actually, Bitcoin Pizza Day, is when I tweeted out, I am starting a design agency for Bitcoin companies. Does anyone want to work with me? And then it's been insane. It's been an amazing year. Trying to think. Lately, I've been designing a lot of hats. So that's been like a fun creative outlet that's like more independent. It's definitely not like core business aspect, but it's like fun. So I keep making hats. And recently I've been doing a lot of work with Ocean. I may be working on some knots designs.
Nice.
Which is fun. But it's funny too when you have multiple clients that like disagree with each other. That's a very unique thing for Bitcoiner. It's like I have great clients over here, but they don't really get along. So that's kind of fun.
So you're working for Shinobi, is what you're telling us. That's what's going on.
I don't think I could ever do that. But anyways, I think. So like on the topic of Bitcoin and design, does Bitcoin make design better? Not by itself. I think like Bitcoin exacerbates it elucidates, it like shows and clarifies who people really are and what their abilities really are.
Yeah.
And it like kind of like cuts away grift. So because of that, like people that have a lot of Bitcoin, I like want to expect them to have taste as well and be like these Renaissance men, like in a century ago, these guys that would just like design a beautiful home, build a library for their city, be like commissioning amazing works of art,
Da Vinci's and Michelangelo's,
but really it's like I think fiat has degraded most individuals and just like the kind of, I don't like the word education, but it's like they were classically educated in like all these different things, which made them like connoisseurs of beauty, goodness, and truth in a way that just no one really is anymore. It's like so rare. I mean, all of our billionaires, they don't have taste. All the millionaires don't have taste. Like it's like all of these realms of wealth. It's like, who has taste anymore? So the like short answer is I think Bitcoin can give people extra purchasing power to build great things, design great things, but they have to become better in order to do those things. So you have to become worthy of building these better things,
Mm.
which requires a lot more than just Bitcoin. So
What I'm hearing you say is that we can't just sanctify all of our tastes and immediate intuitive just ideas as being great art. That's what I'm hearing you say. You're saying there actually are constraints that actually constitute great art, and we actually have to constrain ourselves to those constraints and actually get better by some objective-ish standard.
Yeah.
And that's gonna because if you're gonna convince people to give up their Bitcoin, it's gonna have to be something, very that they deem worthy of it, and that's exercised and required lots of excellence and hard work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think too, like I see people that hold Bitcoin as like the patrons, but the problem is like you have to, in order to commission something amazing, you have to know what amazing is. So that's I'm kind of bummed to see that doesn't really exist.
Our billionaire classes are all just STEM, like tech guys. And some of them are like legacy business owners and stuff, but they're not like Renaissance men.
Yeah, and that's really what I mean. Again, I like, you look back a century, like early American entrepreneurs, like they were just dabbling in so many different things and like so good at so many different things. I mean, Elon's like an interesting example of this. Doesn't look like he has taste. I mean, it looks like he can like bring people around him that have some like semblance of a taste, but like it just doesn't seem like he's like, one of his things is like caring about beauty. So I think another thing about the early OG Bitcoiners is like it didn't select for Renaissance men, it selected for like a certain type of person as well. And like I don't think that group of people is necessarily like conducive to bringing beauty and bringing design into the world, like better design into the world. So
cypherpunks,
they
bring privacy and they bring like encryption and cool things like that, but not necessarily the most beautiful stuff. Jordan.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it makes me I mean, we're going to hop right into the full-blown Christian stuff here. Like one of the things it makes me think of is the difference between a wartime king and a peacetime king. Yeah. So you have somebody like David, who like David is, I mean, the greatest warrior in Israel's history, both as a child and then as a king. Like but he goes through his whole career as king is basically it's bloody. And so he gets to the end of his life and he wants to be the one, like he's been it's been very helpful. It needed to happen. He needed to exist. And what he did needed to happen, but it came at a high cost. And so when he gets to the end of his life and wants to be the one to build the temple, he wants to be the one to build this beautiful thing. God goes, no, you're not going to be the guy. And he calls his son, who's this, who hasn't killed anybody, who's very much a more peacetime person. Mm-hmm. So this idea of there being two different generations, like generational differences, like necessary. Hey, we needed these cypherpunks. We needed what they Bitcoin wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them. But now we get onto a different generation and we need different things now. It's not that they're not necessary. It's just that we need more in addition to them.
So I guess a counterpoint I thought of, or not a counterpoint, but it's slightly challenges he did write, and he wrote music, poems.
Who did? Oh, David. Oh, okay, cool. Okay,
huge musician.
This is true. This is true. Yeah,
that is like a huge. I mean, he wasn't like an architect.
Also dancer. He was a big dancer.
Musician. So poet. So I think that he was sort of a Renaissance man.
Correct. Yep.
So there's something
philosopher king.
Yeah. He really was like a more robust. He's more robust than just a warrior. That's all I would add. It's not like a contradiction. It's just like, but again, he wasn't the one to build the temple, which is like a drastically different thing.
Yep.
But I mean, so what would you say his son was?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you're fleshing this out better, because honestly, like when I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, is like from the beginning of the scriptures, one of the things that you see is that like this question of you have this God basically solves for this existential crisis of what does it mean to be human? Like God creates mankind with certain things in mind. He like there's certain callings that he calls them to, and he designs them like for certain purposes.
Yeah.
And so to right now, like this is something where we're going just culturally, societally, like we're going through this giant existential crisis of like, what does it mean to be human? What is anything? And how do we know? And so this idea, so like and if you were to put these in categories, you have like the three things that God, he says one thing about humanity in Genesis, in the first 3 chapters of Genesis, he says, let us make man in our image. Okay. So he says, boom, what it means to be human is to be made in the image of God. And then he says 3 things to them. He tells them to do 3 things. He says, be fruitful, multiply. He says to guard and keep the garden. That's the 3rd thing. And then subdue the earth. Yep. Subdue and exercise dominion. That's the 3 things. And so so with multiplication, being fruitful, multiply, that's the idea of sonship. So like have kids. If you have image bearers, that's having kids. And then you have subdue and exercise dominion. That's the words that are translated, subdue and exercise dominion, are translated and repeated all throughout the rest of the Bible to describe the work of the kings of Israel.
Yeah.
And so it's be a son, be a king, and then to guard and keep, which is what their work in the garden was supposed to be. That is used, that those 2, the Hebrew words that are translated as guard and keep, are repeated all throughout the rest of the Bible to describe the work of the priests, the priestly class. So according to the scriptures, like what it means to be human is to be a son, to be a king, and to be a priest. And so with Solomon, like you do see David do that. Like he succeeds in although you could argue, I guess you could argue he has the priestly things because he does commune with God. Like he loves God. And so there is that element there. And Solomon has some of that too. Like Solomon has a lot of that stuff too. He just doesn't have the bloody history. So it's not so much that David was incomplete. It's just that David he had all the good stuff, but then he also had this stain, this bloodiness to him that Solomon didn't have.
Yeah. 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 Solomon was pretty amazing in terms of like his wisdom.
Yep.
His ability, like he wasn't like an engineer only type. Right? It was like he had like a breadth of sort of knowledge. But I think like really what I want to like actionable advice, I would say, is like we should all just cultivate a better I guess like approach to looking at the world and accurately judging what goodness, beauty, and truth are. So like every human being should just do that and just be better at that. Because like I was thinking about this, I was looking at a lot of old buildings, and I think one reason like modernists really hate classical design is I think they're just totally
pastiche.
Yeah, well, that
redoing is pastiche.
I think they feel judged by it because like the excellence and the craft it's just like, I don't know how to do that, therefore it's bad. Like I think that's the
it's pretentious, or it's like it's pretentious. The reason why they did this is because they were pretentious, and I'm not pretentious, and so I don't want to be like that.
So but I just think that's cope. It's like all cope.
Yeah,
it's like
100%
agreed.
Cope, yeah. Well, like for me, like I don't know if you saw my post on it, just tagging your post from yesterday, Skylar. But the idea of like, well, if a lot of that's ornamentation, like if we're gonna make a spiral staircase versus just a square, like a fire exit. Yeah. It's like, well, we're going to have to spend a lot more time and money. We're going to have to design it. We're going to have to get the right skill set to build it. We're going to have to source all these new materials and, cut the materials and put it all together, all this other stuff. Yeah. All of that is time and money. And in a fiat world, there's just no time and no money. Nobody values that. And you can apply that to the whole ecosystem. And it just says, no, actually, the thing that defines good design at that point is like just square patterns that are executed well. Like an A-frame is considered like a beautiful pattern for a house,
Yeah.
you know, or like a cabin and all that. And it's like, yeah, it looks pretty neat in some cases, but it's almost like a trick because there's no ornamentation for it. There's no pushing on anything that takes extraordinary skills to actually create.
Well, I think like on that architecture, so Leon Creer is one of I just love him. He's still alive, but he's this architect that is all about like bringing classicism into modern day building as much as you can.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about how building should be as diverse as the races, basically. Like each place has a specific type of person, a specific type of housing, specific type of design that actually makes sense. So it's like this like more localist, or I guess that's right. Like vernacular is a better way to say it, is like vernacular design is like what humans can do in their particular environments. So he's like a big advocate of that. Whereas the modernist style, the international style, is like you apply the same spreadsheet style building to everything everywhere, which is very similar to what the internet is. It's like this, like every website is the same because it's like basically this like commodification of UI. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm not like very particular, like I'm not very judgmental of a lot of unique building styles, because I'm like, if it jives with the place, then it's closer to good than a modernist take would be. So, you know, I'm not, and I'm also like not an ornament maximalist, because sometimes ornament makes
ornamentalist.
Sense. Yeah. Sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, so I think there's like, that's part of what taste is. It's like knowing when to do the right thing in the right circumstance. Cause like the modernists were like Adolf Loos, Loos, wrote this essay in 1910 called Ornament and Crime. And like basically saying like functional design should never have ornament. It's like a very, very interesting read. He's like it's like one of those like angry internet atheists that like hate God. But like I hate God and he doesn't exist type of thing. It's like I hate ornamentation and like shouldn't exist. So it's like he's just like very angry at ornamentation. So that's like anti-ornament. But there's also some people that are like pro-ornament everything, and I think that's like wrong too. But
could you just real quick? I'm just imagining if there's people listening to this who are like, what's ornament? Now they could probably Google these things, but like in a 30-second summary, like what is ornamentation?
I mean, I would like to have Stephen describe this too, but like I see it as like decoration that doesn't serve a purely functional utilitarian purpose.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's something in my mind, it's something that speaks almost entirely to the aesthetics, the look, the feeling you get from something. Not it's the form versus function thing. It's like, no, it's literally pure form. There's no like the functionality of it is that maybe you can take a beautiful photo, right? Like,
but it's not inherent to the actual building,
the actual functioning of the space. Unless the space is meant to function as a music hall or something where beautiful music is meant to be played or something. Like you kind of have to like push the arguments in weird ways for it to really work. But essentially.
Got it. I mean, most people just don't like, I mean, it's just sad that like a lot of things have just stripped ornament away from everything. And most people don't even know why, like, if you drive through a suburb in like, a red state, it's like, it's just like death. Like you're just like looking at death, and it's like, yeah, they're like American Dream homes, but it's like, dude, that is a spreadsheet. It's a horizontal spreadsheet instead of a vertical spreadsheet. And you're just like, human beings should not live in this sort of thing. But I'm kind of pessimistic that like we can really escape that quickly. I think it will take a long time to undo the damage of like sprawl or like suburban sprawl.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's like the best you can do is just kind of like fix your own home and then learn how to do it, and then make your bed, fix your home, and then maybe someday we can build our own towns. But I think that would be like kind of a worthy goal for Bitcoiners to figure out, is like, how do you actually make a city that is like beautiful and good? But that, again, do people have the ability to do this anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
Bitcoiners
In the
should
present,
do that.
in the present paradigm, I would say, apart from very extreme circumstances, like there's a city in Guatemala I think it's Guatemala somewhere. I have to look it up, but it's 100% brand new city that was built without, like, we're not doing any cars. We're not, it's like 100%. Right? Yeah, something like that.
That was made by Leon Creer.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
He designed by that. Yeah,
circle.
Like this, there are people that know how to do it, that have had success doing it, that know like how to think on human scale terms, not on international like skyscraper and jet plane terms, or even just car terms, right? Like thinking in terms of a car really kind of upsets a human scale environment or community or dynamic of how you want to interact with the world. I think that, for me personally, as a Bitcoiner looking at it, it's all I just see is how fiat has destroyed the world. So for a lot of the pessimism for me just comes from, oh, well, that's like, as I described, like, well, it's not that ornamentation should always be used.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. It's like, you have to use it in the right spot for the right reason, right?
Yeah. Did he freeze?
Oh, yes, he did. So, Skylar, I mean, with some of these things, what have been some of the other people or just movements that have affected your design thought? If there's people who want to kind of chase them down.
I mean, it just kind of depends. I think there's stuff to glean from every period of design. But I mean, lately I've just really loved, it's also just fun to look at, like, I mean, typography is not that old. So I don't know. It's kind of funny because like you look back in the 1800s and there was a sans serif created in the 1800s. It's like, looks like Helvetica, like the most standard font.
Really?
I forget the name of it. I don't know if it's Accidents Grotesque or if there's one before that. I'm pretty sure there's one before that, but it looks like just the most modern thing ever. But you wouldn't think modernity is like 1800, late 1800s. But anyways, I just like love looking at fonts, and like you can basically take a lot of inspiration just from that period. So like there's all these different things. Like for Pierre Richard's company, the Bitcoin Bond Company, initially we were looking at like Rothschild, Medici, all those like families and like wealth, like sovereign wealth families. And then eventually we realized like that's actually the wrong vibe. That vibe is like too different from America. It's like the American thing. So then I was like, we got to look at Ben Franklin, because Ben Franklin was like super responsible for the American printing aesthetic.
Oh, cool.
Early on. Like he brought typefaces over from England and would like print. And he's like, I have my favorite font. It's Caslon. And Caslon is like what everything should be typed in. And so look into like Caslon, like all the early documents were like, if they were typeset, they would use Caslon. So we're like, okay, we got to use Caslon for the Bitcoin Bond Company. I mean, it's just like a standard stuff, like you've seen it before. So anyways, like I I don't really have these ones that like, it's kind of similar to the Leon Creer perspective. It's just like, you just have to know when to use which inspiration correctly. So it's like, not, like when I was young in high school, I was obsessed with this documentary called Helvetica, and which is it's pretty fun documentary to watch if you're into design. But like, basically it's about like Helvetica maximalism. And it was like, everything should be in Helvetica. It's like a very modernist thing. So that was like my intro to like being a designer, is like Helvetica. And then you learn and you grow up and you're like, oh, actually you should use different things in different ways for different purposes all the time. So I grew out of the modernist maximalism and into like just trying to do the right thing at the right time.
It is, this conversation is so crazy, man, because like I've been just submerging my head in this whole OpReturn debate.
Oh gosh.
And dude, it has just been a trip, because there's so many things that are not intuitive, that like the grounding assumptions that a lot of these arguments are being based on, both for and against. And like, it is just so interesting, because so much of the anti OpReturn, or like getting rid of the filters, that kind of stuff, it is based in this idea that any filtration is arbitrary. And so like you can follow this, you can extrapolate this more and go like, all right, well then, like, again, beauty is just beauty, and actual goodness, design aesthetic is just totally arbitrary. There's nothing actually inherently, or there's no actual, truthful goodness at the core of this. And it's just so fascinating. Like how again, we can't just neatly parse out these things. Like they really do. Like we're getting at something real and deep and profound and ancient. But we don't have, like, this is how I just keep thinking as I listen to them. Like, you don't have the muscle memory. Like, this is so far outside of your depth. Like, you guys are like, it's engineer muscles are very different than philosopher muscles.
Yeah.
And especially moral philosophy. Like, the arguments you're making are not good arguments, but you are experts in this engineering thinking, which is super necessary. It's super good. But the temptation is for you to despise and diminish and just like reasoning and evidence that's got a different evidentiary standard than engineering evidentiary standards. Yeah. And so it's just so fascinating. And this is why I'm getting ready to do this piece on this, or like do a video about this. But like, one of the things that was really interesting is they keep saying, like the mechanic and all these guys are just, they're ideological. You guys are making an ideological argument, and we're just making a technical argument. Yeah. Okay. And the problem is, like, how do you define what is a technical argument? In order to define a technical argument, you have to go outside of technical arguments to make that argument. Like, you need ideological boundings in order to do this, but they don't recognize it. And so again, I'm sympathetic to that, because again, it's like, we have strengths that they need, and the core devs and all these guys, they have strengths that we need. And so we can't despise and just mock each other. But it really is this super interesting thing that you start to see, flesh itself out in all kinds of surprising places.
So there's, to that point directly, there's an incredible C.S. Lewis quote, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. Let's go. Let me just read it for you.
Of course there is. Let's go.
You cannot go seeing through things forever. The whole point of seeing through something is to see something through it. It is good the window should be transparent, because the street or garden beyond is opaque. How if you saw through the garden too? It is no use trying to see through first principles. If you see through everything, then everything is transparent. But a wholly transparent world is an invisible world. To see through all things is the same as to not see.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
when you talk about the ideological stuff, and like, this small ideological framework versus this other ideological framework, it's like they're applying the ideology to something else. And getting back to design, we do the exact same thing. This is where pastiche comes in. Well, no, we hate all the classic stuff. We hate reintroducing ornamentation. We hate reintroducing all this stuff. We hate looking at the world through other lenses because our lens is, for some reason, which we can't explain or defend, is better than your lens. Like, we just see through your lens. We just see through, like, no, you're wrong about this stuff. And it's not, it's like, sure, yours, like, there's no humanitarian kind of understanding, wider, larger meta picture.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that mentality is pretty modernist, which I think is dead. Like, I think modernity is dead. Like, so it's funny that we're the technical guys. It reminds me of the early internet atheist 4 Horsemen guys. And it's like, we have science, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they're totally retarded on everything else, but they like know some like science, which is like not reproducible. It's like totally fake anyways, but they think it's real. But it's like they're like the dying modernists, right? Where it's like, we believe in this objective truth, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, we don't believe in God. We just believe in this technical analysis. It's like, I feel like we are shifting, or we have shifted fully into like post-modernity, for better and worse. Like, it's good to destroy modernity because modernity is rotten and it's like built on a fake God of like fake reason, fake truth, fake or rather a godless truth, a godless reason, and a godless order. But so I think like going back to the point about seeing, people don't like seeing through the nostalgia or seeing through like the old ways of doing things. I actually think post-modernity allows us to do that sort of like thing, because now it's like this chaotic, there is no order. We kind of create the order. And so now it's like we can kind of just do whatever we want, which means that we now have the opportunity to do whatever we want, which means let's bring nostalgia back. Like, let's do that. You know, I'm happy about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like the totally free market is it's both gonna be catastrophic, because you're going to see people like it's an absolutely free ideological market. So if you want to say you're a cat, like, you're good. If you want to say, like, you could just go to the craziest extremes, but it's going to be like self-selecting, where like it's going to be so stark. The difference between people who are like, I honestly, all 3 of us have kids. Like, I think this is one of those things where it's so ironic is that people are self-selecting, like by either not, again, it's like by not breeding or by breeding. Obviously we would never call it breeding. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but like by not having,
you breed.
So, but like, it's one of these things where like, if you're not having kids, like for whatever reason, however you're going to justify it, like you're cutting off the influence that you could have on the future generation. And it's because you're saying, all right, I'm going to make this impact in a different way or whatever. But it's just, again, and it's like, it's kind of one of those things where like, don't interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake type of things, where it's like, all right, bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him,
Well, I have maybe a contrarian thought on that.
Do it.
People that don't have kids, I actually think they're more influential over the people that do have kids, because they're a little bit unhinged and
they have this much more time.
That much, to say the least. I mean, they're like, they kind of have this understanding of the world that like they are actually the mother of the world, and they enforce like this longhouse. They kind of like want to control everyone, and so if they can't like really have their own family to control, so I think that might be shifting. The power might be shifting a bit, but that is something I am bullish on Bitcoin empowering families that want to say no to those people, like no to their schools, no to their mandates, no to their.
Oh man,
shoot, am I frozen?
Yeah, there you go.
We got you
disappeared into the Borg for about 15 seconds.
Things started loading to me. So anyways, I think like I love Bitcoin because it gives us power to exit that matrix, or I don't like that term necessarily, but like gives us freedom to actually build our own sort of world. I don't really like separating, but like at the same time, there kind of has to be some divorce. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like in, not of, but like, how do we actually build something without it getting destroyed? Like what's the best way to steward civilization, I guess?
Well,
So
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, preface both of our talks. Both Jordan and I have talked about this before, and I think we have different views on it. But I think they're compatible in interesting ways.
Okay.
So, yeah, Jordan, go.
Oh, well, here you answer first, and then I'll. You know what they say, age before beauty. Go for it. Just kidding. No.
Okay. So my answer is that we're basically in, going back to the whole Bitcoin makes everything better, right? We have been living in a world that has been controlled by fiat, and a world that's controlled by fiat means fiat, the currency, affects everyone in the world's incentives. You cannot move to anywhere on earth and escape those incentives. No matter what, you like, oh man, I just can't stand it here, so I'm going to move to somewhere else. But the place that you move to is still affected by fiat. They might be like a little behind, so they seem more, say, conservative or more family focused, but they're pointing in the same direction. So it doesn't matter where you live. We are all under a fiat regime. The consequences of that mean, well, there's no running. The only move you can make, the only strategic thing you can do is either like do the Citadel commune, like we're going to completely exit and literally use Bitcoin and not accept outside money, which is extremely hard to do. I don't know if there's actually anybody who's able to even fundamentally do that. You like for real do that. Like El Salvador kind of tried, but that's not the case. They're not even close.
Yeah.
The other alternative is to just plant a flag where you are and be like, no, I refuse to, for me, my family, we are on a Bitcoin standard. We are going to fight this where we are. We're going to integrate however we can. We're going to build a community. We're going to educate people. We're going to, move forward in that front. That all of a sudden, this is no longer a question of like, well, what's the right thing to do? It's like, no. You're fighting a war now. I'm fighting a war against an enemy that is attacking me. And it's, if I choose to be offensive, I might make some headway. If I plant a flag and make an offensive stance. If I choose to be defensive and retreat, I will never be able to get that ground back until I turn around. Yeah. Now that's kind of like my perspective on it. Jordan, you have a different and interesting perspective on that.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is like there's generally three perspectives on this, right? You have the run, you have the fight, or you have like a regroup, which is kind of like a middle ground of the thing. And so again, now this is where I will win the argument because I can point to Jesus running. There's times where there's like Jesus, the guys are trying to throw him off the cliff, and Jesus like escapes through the crowd. And again, now why? It was always a strategic running away because Jesus is like, no, I'm not going to die getting chucked off a cliff. I'm going to die on a cross. Yeah. And so like this is where, it's like there's whatever you're doing, it can't just be motivated by self-preservation. Like that's clearly not a sufficient motive. And this is actually, to return to the upper-turn thing, it's like you can't use like self-convenience or like, I want to do this thing, and so I'm going to do it. Like that is it's a deficient motivation, no matter where you find it. Now, self-preservation and self-interested action are two different things. They seem similar, but they are similar in some way, but they're not the same thing. And so obviously everyone has self-interest. Like that's just an obvious fact of living. Like the actions affect you. But it's not that's different than saying I'm going to protect myself at any cost. That is deficient. And so whether you're running temporarily, whether you're staying and fighting, And whether you're regrouping, like it still always needs to be a tactical thing. There needs to be motivation behind it. Now, the reason and the how I would parse out,
it has to have taste. Going back to
correct. Yeah, it has to have principle. It has to be a principled action, which again is it's a spiritual action in a real sense. It's a pre-actualized action. Like this is something you're conceptualizing, you're trying to figure out in your head what is right to do. And then based on that, then you go and carry it out in your body in the world. So the thing that the dynamics that I would want to add, that I would be quick to say are not bulletproof. It's not like, this is what, if you have kids, you do this. If you don't, you do this. But I do think having kids plays a role here. Yeah. Right. Like there's like, if you have 14-year-old kids, then your life and decisions ought to look different than they do if you are a single person.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, because there's going to be factors and just particular challenges, temptations, threats that you're going to have to be sympathetic to, or just like take into account that maybe other people won't. And so again, this is why I'm not saying that Stephen, that Bondor should flee, California. Like this is, I don't think that that's the case. And I think there are situations for people who should stay there, and they should, be faithful witnesses, and they should do all these things. At the same time, like I look around at, in my case, I look at my kids, and I look at my kids who, now again, we have family factors that complicate or that add more color to our decision making. But like, it's one of these things where, hey, I have a limited amount of time with my kids to train them up. And so I want to take seriously that time. And so it would, I have a buddy whose name is Andrew, who just moved from, his family lived in a place, in a state for 5 generations. And finally the state passed a law that basically said, that, if parents denied their kids' gender identity, they could be taken away by CPS and stuff. And he's got a kid with autism, severe autism, and like they people at the kid's school could confuse him. He says something about being a girl. He basically comes out, his parents don't allow this. Well, then they could take him away. So he leaves his generational home, for his family's generational home, for 5 generations. He leaves, moves to a state where there's more protections. And he has a lot of people coming at him. He's had a lot of people coming at him. We're like, you're such a coward, blah, blah, blah. Like you ran away. You should have stayed and fought. And his basic thing was, listen, like I'm not just thinking about myself. Like you can't just think about yourself when you have kids. Jesus was a single man. Paul was a single man. They were willing to lay down rights that God gave humans and intended humans to have and to exercise under normal circumstances, that neither one of them exercised because there were other things going on. And so I think this is just the thing that I would want to point out is there's a number of more factors to figure out how to steward when you have other people in your life.
Yeah. Don't really disagree with anything of that.
That all sounds good too.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like having the right telos or telos of goal or aim is like, I think part of taste, right? It's like knowing where we should go and what we should do, or what is the most important thing kind of like to love or to chase. So having the right goal there, because like a single person might be called to that, and that might be the thing they need to do, but making sure that it's like rightly ordered is important too, because it could just be them saying, oh, I just want convenience, so I'm going to be single. It's like, I doubt most people really, I think most people that are like involuntarily single would not feel that way, but anyways, I think trying to tie it all back together is like, I think Bitcoin is one of the only things that can give us margin in our lives to actually have like a leisure time that allows us space to develop taste and to actually contemplate the world in a way that's like different than what the rat race world, the fiat world, like provides for you. So I really love that Bitcoin gives humans space, gives them more time and more freedom to actually like pursue the things that they should pursue. So that's where I have hope, is that on a new Bitcoin standard, you can buy yourself time to actually do things that you feel like you should do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Buy yourself time to be able to like make choices that actually impact the world and make the world closer to the truth, more beautiful, like gives you the opportunity to do good in the world, as opposed to fiat, which is constantly robbing your agency and prevents you from, or really seriously constrains you from pursuing those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess, is it impossible on the fiat standard to do that? No. But it's much harder.
Jordan,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely not impossible. It's just for the average person, it's a lot harder, right? Because like there's so many more. It's like you're so interconnected. Like there's so much money and so much structure that you're just having to think about that wasn't necessarily there. I mean, like one of the examples of this I think about all the time, right? And this is like somewhat tangential, but like I think I read the book of Acts, right, where you have Ananias and Sapphira. Yeah. Right. Like, have you guys ever thought about what that passage would like if that happened in your church, right? Like you have this couple comes in.
Horrible.
They offer to like give your church hey, we're going to give the church $100,000 or $200,000. And they just sold this building for $400,000. They're like, listen, we're going to give you the whole thing. We're going to give you $200,000. Somebody goes and checks the MLS, numbers, and they're like, actually, they sold this for 400. They come in there, and your pastor goes, hey, guys, you sold this for 200 grand? Wow, that's incredible. And they're like, yeah, like man, it was not as much as we were thinking, but here it is. We're grateful for it. And then the pastor goes, hey, like you just lied, and then they just drop dead. And then the wife comes in, and similar thing, boom, and then she drops dead. Like, imagine trying to, like, somebody their family calls the cops. And they're like, they just went there and supposedly they dropped dead. Like, what do you mean they killed them? It's obvious that, the pastor over there, that guy Skylar who makes Bitcoin hats, like he straight up killed them because they wanted their money. Like they wanted their money. It's obvious. Like it's so obvious. That's what the incentive structure dictates. I don't care what they said. They're making up this crazy story. Oh, God killed them. Like there's so many of these things where like their existence was so much less connected than ours is, that and so much of that connection is funded and enabled by fiat currency and by governments that have effectively unlimited resources. Many places around the world, governments in the poorer places, the governments, you can still get away with a lot in a good way because the governments don't have the resources. They don't have unlimited resources. And so I just think that this is like, that's one of the things that I could be wrong about this, but just like thinking about like Bitcoin, it's scarce money that forces choices to be made. And again, this could be gamed, this could be abused, and this is where like people just need to kind of stand up and actually fight in a non-technical ground to kind of stand up against a government's desire to reinstitute the same kind of fiat games on a Bitcoin standard. Like this is, because again, like you could still do like a Bitcoin backed, fiat currency or a Bitcoin backed national currency, theoretically at least, that would still provide, it would restore, it would get rid of the debt problem, which is the political problem that a lot of these guys are dealing with, but it would still restore to them the unlimited money glitch thing. Yeah. So again, I don't know that it's actually possible. I don't know. Like I'm not that, happily optimistic that things are going to be perfect on a Bitcoin standard. But again, I think on a long enough time horizon, it certainly is a better situation than the one that we're in, or at least buys us time.
I mean, getting back to your question, Skylar, about, you know, can it actually affect the average person? I think it's an obvious yes. And the obvious yes comes from, you know, if your income is in Bitcoin, then, and you can just do this today. I mean, it's not easy, but you can literally like renegotiate your employment contract, say take a 10% pay cut, but just have a flat rate of now you're just paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that action mean you never suffer inflation again, which means that point going forward, you know, maybe it takes a couple months or a couple years to actually like really make a difference for you. But from that point going forward, you're not suffering from inflation anymore. That means that all of your costs, like whenever the grocery store costs go up, well, Bitcoin follows M2, global M2. So, you know, maybe it doesn't hit milk exactly, but it's going to hit the eggs, or maybe it doesn't hit, you know, the oranges exactly because they go from Chile or whatever, but it you know, it's going to hit the beef, which came from Argentina, right?
Yeah.
In total, in aggregate, over a long time frame, you're just not suffering from inflation anymore. You're not suffering from inflation anymore. You don't have the inflationary pressure. You have, as you're talking about, more time to think about this stuff. Now, Jordan's point, maybe governments figure out a way to, you know, manipulate the system and all sort of stuff. You know, if they can, I feel like somebody would have done that already, not a government, just like a corporation or somebody, right? And I mean, hopefully they can't. I don't think they can.
Well, again, it wouldn't happen now. That's the thing, right? Like the
Sure.
fiat doesn't get debased until, or sorry, gold doesn't get debased until it dominates the whole system. Like there's a timeliness to this, and this is how it always happens, right? Like you get the gold is the dominant thing in the system, and then it becomes so it's super beneficial, but then over time it becomes inconvenient, and so then you debase it to get some of that convenience back. And so the convenience cycle, you know, it
Sure,
swings
but
through. So,
but is like, what's the convenience cycle on Bitcoin? How are you going to have something that's more convenient than Lightning, for instance? Like,
yeah,
we're talking
so-
about millisecond transactions,
here's how.
more convenient.
Well, no, here's how. This is exactly how. The first time that somebody takes somebody's Bitcoin and they grab their wallet when they're going to send something, and they like grab the phone out of their hand and they transfer all of that Bitcoin to another a wallet that they control, while some of their friends are holding the people. And then you have somebody who basically says, my entire life savings got stolen because of Bitcoin. And then the government just goes, hey, here's government Bitcoin or whatever. Like where you're just like, here, we can provide a security thing where we can give you your money back. Again, obviously it's an awful take. I'm not saying that this is like but it provides a short-term benefit. It provides a short-term, like if you're somebody who's been bred by the system to think 5 minutes ahead of time and not, you know, months, years, generations, whatever, like that short-term immediate benefit is going to be and detriment by contrast with the Bitcoin, losing the Bitcoin, like there's gonna be a lot of people who are just willing to like hop back on the government, you know, issued cocaine if it's going to mean that they can at least superficially get their money back. Like that, I think that's a big carrot for a lot of people.
I mean, ultimately, there's a window for that, though, right? Because as Bitcoin affects the large scale demographics and everything else, we start to see all the high time preference stuff really start to come out generation after generation. So, yeah, that's probably going to happen at some point. But you know, every generation, we're on generation whatever it is 5 now of fiat currency, and every generation going forward it's like we've been pushing this direction, we're not pushing the other direction, and it's not evenly distributed and all that other stuff. But people are in real time. The time preferences are elongating, and the internet helps with this. AI helps with this. Bitcoin helps with this. We're all the time preferences is getting longer and longer. We're able to see like, oh yeah, I can just really easily search last time somebody got elected, what their policy was and how they failed, and how this person is getting elected for the same reason, and how we know it's going to fail again. And so we're not putting hope into that anymore. We're looking for deeper solutions, right? So yeah, there's definitely a time for like that attack to take place. But I think every day, every hour that it doesn't happen is like TikTok next block.
Mhm.
TikTok
Mhm.
next block. So, all right, you guys, we should be wrapping it up. Skylar, do you have any last call shout outs? Anything else? Any last words? Anything you got?
I mean, come to Vegas. Let's all hang out in Vegas.
Let's
If
go.
you guys want. I'm doing a panel on Bitcoin design on the open source stage with a couple cool Bitcoin designers, and I'm bringing my new hats, which I have multiple colors in.
Let's go.
And there's only 2 of these because they're so obnoxious. But I know that there will be people that want those. So anyways, I would love to hang out in Vegas. If you guys are watching this, come hit us up. Go to the Thank God for Bitcoin barbecue. If it's, are there still tickets?
There's still tickets. There's still a few. They're gonna go fast because we have like a group of like 25 that looks like they're gonna come. So
Okay.
so that
Yeah,
means we have like 20 less than 25 tickets left. So go
Yeah.
grab them.
I'll be there.
Let's hang out in Vegas. That's my
It cracked me up because when you first started mentioning Bondor, you started mentioning what are they called? Different Italian artists. All I could think of was like, it's hilarious because like Skylar looks like he's wearing like the Bitcoin version of a Mario hat. And so like Mario is obviously Italian as well.
dude.
So
That's
just
funny.
following in their footsteps. It's great.
That's so funny.
All right,
Amazing.
Jordan, last words. What do you got?
I'm good. No, you talked about you
okay.
shilled the barbecue for me. Appreciate you guys. Skylar, love you, bro. And yeah, appreciate all of you guys watching, and see you soon.
All right, everybody. This has been Better by Bitcoin. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to Better by Bitcoin. Bitcoin makes everything better. Like, subscribe, and follow us on X at BetterBYBTC, YouTube at BetterBYBitcoin. Not financial advice, mathematical certainty.